Hello quilters, welcome to Handi Quilter Live. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking with Ben Millett, a quilter, pattern designer, and all-around great human, so stay tuned. So today we have Ben Millett here in the studio, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you because I've been a fan of your designs and your quilting for quite some time, and excited to hear your creative process, and really excited to take a look at some quilts that you've brought in for show and tell.
For sure.
So to start things off, I would love to hear the story of how you became a quilter.
I became a quilter at one point when my grandmother wasn't able to make quilts for all of the grandkids. She wasn't able to make the quilts anymore, and I got to make the wedding quilt for one of my cousins, just on my small Singer domestic machine, all of the piecing, all of the quilting, using straight pins, because that's how you pin based is with straight pins. And then I made quilts for nieces and nephews. But it was really after I made some quilts for some nephews who I used Kona cotton solids, I fell in love with the range of colors that Kona has, and really saw the opportunity to use color as an additional element in my designs rather than just the pieces, to really play with the colors and using ombres and using colors that kind of yell at each other.
Yeah. So your grandmother was a quilter. Do you have any of her quilts?
I do.
Yeah. You still have them.
Yeah. At one point she made one for all 14 grandchildren, and I have a nice green quilt that I have stored away, but yeah, I still have one of hers.
And she was doing it all by hand.
She was using, well, by hand on a machine.
Right.
But yeah.
No Longarm machine.
No Longarm.
Yeah, labor of love. That's
Absolutely.
I really love that idea of you continue on that tradition of quilting in your family. And it is like, it's surprising, when I got into quilting, I found out my great-grandmother was a quilter, and then out come the photos of the quilts that she created. And I never met her. She was my great-grandmother. But I do feel this sort of affection and affinity with her that I'm able to carry on that tradition in our family and give it to my kids. I think it's a lovely way to maintain that family heritage. But you've developed a really unique style, something that's very much your own. Like, how did you end up going from doing these quilts for family to designing your own patterns?
It was a process of mostly just playing with other people's patterns initially. I would find someone else's pattern and make changes to do it more how I thought it should be. They're great patterns, but I made my own little changes and played with the color, like I had mentioned. And I really wanted to play with the different shapes and the different secondary patterns that would come out from like a traditional block. Putting them together, but try different variations and rotations, and just how the different colors were interacting that could create secondary shapes that may not have been there. And so I think that being able to control and just explore and have my perfectionist tendencies to make something exactly what I wanted. That was really how I got into doing more quilts and more for myself, of being able to see what I wanted, make what I wanted to see. And then I wanted to be able to share those patterns with other people in case they wanted to make their own variations of my patterns. And so that's how I ended up making patterns that other people could use for their own quilts.
Yeah, and I love your color choices. They're so intense and so vibrant. I look at this quilt behind us, and I think you're right. Like the color almost vibrates, right? Like I look at it, and the subtle changes in size as you go from the center of the quilt up toward the top. And it's a repetitive pattern, but each one's slightly smaller as you go throughout. it almost seems to move in my eyes. The way the colors interact and the repetition and changes in size make it such an interesting and dynamic quilt pattern.
Yeah, this one, I really had fun coming up with this pattern because I wanted to have all of the area of the blue and the acid lime to be roughly the same from top to bottom, even though the orange peel is a different shape or a different size, and the corner triangles are a different size, and having the diagonal lines, it really does vibrate as much as the fabric, as much as the colors do.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Well, this is fantastic. I see a stack of some quilts here. Well, I see a couple of quilts, and I see something else that is quilted,
Yes.
but isn't a traditional quilt. Let's take a look at what you've brought for us.
So this is a sweatshirt that I made. I already had 2 quilt coats. I didn't really need a third, but so I wanted to do something a little different and something that I could just pull on and not have to worry about any zippers or buttons, anything like that. So it had this sweatshirt that I really wanted to play with the color, with the ombre. I had all of these fabrics in my scrap pile and knew I needed to put them together because of how the colors went together, and really had fun putting this all together as a sweatshirt that, like I said, doesn't have a zipper, so you just kind of have to wiggle into it and then like shimmy it off when you want to get it off. But
yeah, well, and you did such a great job of that kind of gradation in color, where you've got all this warmth and brightness up here, and then out toward the end of the arms and down toward the bottom of your torso, more of those cool tones. I think you were wearing this the first time I met you at QuiltCon.
Yes.
And you were just like this beaming icon of quilting joy. And I think it's one of those where I'm like, this inspires me to make something on my Longarm machine. Because I don't know if you did this you probably did this on your domestic machine.
I did.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you did something really beautiful and wonderful. But also, I think your decisions here about the quilting that you did on it really accentuate the piecing that you had. It's not too busy. You did, you give some volume to the center of each piece, and it really enhances that modern geometric shape. But from a distance, I think you do get that lovely, kind of that Monet effect, a little bit abstract, but it looks smooth and interesting from the distance.
For sure. And one of the reasons why I just did echo quilting on this is I wanted to have these center spots that just kind of puff up a little bit more with the batting, that not necessarily like a big poofy jacket, a down jacket, but wanted to have some extra volume on this to stand out.
And it looks very warm.
It does look warm. It uses wool batting, which at first I thought I was just going to be overheating in. But when I was wearing this around in Phoenix at QuiltCon, this was actually really comfortable.
Oh, nice.
It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. It was just right.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Such a fun piece. I've got to make something like this someday.
For sure.
Okay. What else do we have here?
I also have this quilt that is one of my patterns called Wild Geese That Fly.
Let's see. Where's the top here? Oh, yep,
we've got the
here
top
we go.
there. Yeah.
Oh, let's stretch that out. Oh, I love it so much.
So this is a fabric line from Sassafras Lane, and it was called Favorite Things. I really wanted to use this particular traditional block that is called Birds in the Sky, and really wanted to build off of that, these flying geese blocks and Favorite Things, pulling the line from the song, Favorite Things, Wild Geese That Fly. So, and I really wanted to emphasize all of the different colors in the collection, and roughly pairing them with their complementary colors, the reds and greens and so on. And what I loved about this was like I was talking about, the secondary shapes that come out in the patterns of, we have this nice solid-ish line.
Yeah.
And then these broken up lines, and how there's more than just these blocks.
I think it is a delightful surprise to spend time looking at this quilt hanging up, because it is the secondary patterns that form from different shapes. I feel like every few seconds I'm like, oh, this forms another delightful shape as it expands outward. And you have a lot of colors that you've selected for this quilt. And when you take it as a whole, however, it feels so lovely and so complementary. It doesn't feel overdone or too busy to me. I feel like your color selections are amazing and beautiful. I feel like I would have made some bad choices in here, but you just have such a solid understanding of how they all work together to create this really interesting whole.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. And then, did you quilt this one on your machine, or did you quilt by check for this one?
I quilted by check for this one, and I really like this edge-to-edge pantograph that really adds some texture, kind of along the lines of the straight line matchstick quilting.
Yeah.
But with the angles, adds a little variation to it that just adds a little more play to the quilt.
And I'm excited to have Ben here, because Ben has been quilting on a home sewing machine for quite a while. And to me, this is a great travesty where I'm like, I can't wait to see what Ben does as he gets into long arm quilting and into computerized quilting. So Ben's been here learning about the Moxie and Pro-Stitcher Lite. I'm so excited to see what, Ben long-arming his own designs on a machine, what that turns out. That's going to be some cool stuff.
I'm really, really looking forward to it.
This is nice. So your choice of binding here, gosh, your binding is perfect. Man, I'm not envious at all. Like you chose fabric is this the same fabric that we have in here? Is this?
Right. It's the same. Right, all of these more neutral whites are pulled out for the binding, just to continue the quilt out to the binding.
And your binding, you're not facing.
Correct. These ones are bound. I do face some quilts, usually smaller ones, more ones that I know will be on the wall.
Yeah.
I intentionally face those. These started out, we could use these, but they're on the wall now, but they're bound, which is good.
I love it. So beautiful. Okay.
Throw this one over here.
Okay, we've got one more. Do you want to take a look at that?
Sure. Where's the top?
Must got a sleeve on the back somewhere.
There was. There it is. Right here.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And is this another design of yours?
This is. It ended up being kind of an improv. Let's use some foundation paper piecing, Courthouse steps blocks, but and that's why I say it was improv. It was let's just try this, and these are different ombre collections from Vanessa Christensen for Moda, and so I paired the woven ombre with the original ombre, which is the solid. And again, I tried to use somewhat complementary colors with the reds and greens and so on. And then this nice stretch of neutrals to help balance out the two sides. And one thing that I really liked about how I was able to use foundation paper piecing for this was that I could line up the lines of the woven.
I was going to say that is really impressive how you know, these little elements line up so perfect. Some people worry about lining up their points, and you're lining up these very thin little pieces in your woven fabrics. It's beautiful.
It was a lot of fun to try to get those in just the right spot.
Right.
But I think this one also just shows one of the things that I like to do is play with ombre fabrics also, whether they're actual ombre fabrics like these ones or like the sweatshirt, just showing that range of the possible colors and that solids can provide.
Yeah, it's beautiful. A lovely exploration of color and shape. It's a lovely quilt. A similar finish that you have on this one, kind of those playful piano keys. I think it suits this quilt really well.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Let's set this one to the side.
Okay.
So, so what's next? What is it you're working on now, and what is it you hope to do with your quilting?
Right now, I'm working on a series of 7 quilts that are all using the same basic shoe fly block that's been modified. It's been modified in that it has a curve added to it, and the half square triangles are rotated a little bit. And they're all using the same acid lime, white, and parrot from Kona, plus a 4th color for a different rainbow color from red to purple in those. And just trying to see how the different rotations of the block add additional secondary and design elements. And those are being put together for a show that I have in December. And I am really looking forward to use the Longarm and the Pro-Stitcher Lite to really emphasize parts of those designs that I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing with just my domestic machine.
Yeah, well, I think it's amazing because you've been working on these incredible patterns, such beautiful, like elegant but bold color choices, and the fact that you're now just getting into the long arm quilting, I think is really relatable for a lot of people out there who have been quilting for some time. And it's interesting because you own, you know, every step of the process. You're not content to go, you know, buy a pattern from somewhere else, or you might modify a pattern that you found somewhere. You're wanting to like own your color choices, the pattern, you know, all the selections you make, your own custom quilting designs that you're going to be putting in there. Because for those of you who haven't been watching what we've been posting a little bit on Instagram, but Ben went and made his own quilting pattern in one night after one day on the Pro-Stitcher, his own custom designs to be quilted out. I think it's just exciting to see what you create next.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your viewership. If you have questions, if you have comments, please feel free to toss them into the comment box below. We'll make sure we get you a response. And make sure you go follow Ben. Where can people find you?
Primarily on Instagram. My handle is Ben Millett, BenMillett.
2 T's. And if you're interested in Ben's beautiful patterns, you also have a shop.
I do.
Where people can download your patterns, right?
It is. And the website's Ben Millett, same spelling, .us.
That's great. I've been to your shop. He has a lovely little mid-century modern home block that I'm particularly fond of because my wife and I are really into mid-century modern homes. So there's a bunch of different designs of different degrees of difficulty and different sizes. Lots of great patterns to get there, and you should check it out. So thank you again for watching. It's lovely to have you here. Make sure you're following us. If you haven't yet, make sure you go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, and if you hit that bell notification, you'll get a notification anytime we post some great quilting content with great people like Ben. We have weekly videos with great content, great tips, and quilting inspiration for you. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.